Financial professionals, Charlie Gipple here, the owner of CG Financial Group, your wonderful IMO based out of beautiful Des Moines, Iowa, when it comes to annuities, life insurance, and long-term care. Hey, guess what we're doing today? We are going to calculate how much of one's Social Security is taxable. We're going to do a case study here. We're going to do it in real time. I haven't really jotted down any notes or anything, so bear with me as we actually do the calculations here. Many of you look at clients' tax returns, like I do, in order to help them optimize their tax return, so to speak, right? And let's say you're dealing with a client that has, say, $100,000 in income over a year. Let's say their provisional income is $100,000 over a year. Provisional income, so I'm talking Social Security taxation. Many of you may look at that line 6 on the tax return where it says Social Security, and maybe that number is $50,000 that they got over that year. But then you look at line 6B, which says total amount of Social Security subject to taxation. And it's a heck of a lot less that is taxable than what you thought it would, because you know that if it's married filing jointly, then anything over $44,000 in provisional income, then 85% of their Social Security will be taxed, right? I use quotes because that's oversimplified. No, 85% of their Social Security will not necessarily be taxed. Up to 85% can be taxed. So why am I splitting hairs here? I'm splitting hairs here because many times for many years I was confused. Well, I thought if they made over $44,000 in provisional income, then if this number is $50,000 here, then over here, whatever $50,000 is times 85%, then that's what should be taxable. Nope. That's way oversimplified. So I want to dig into the nitty gritty here and talk about really how the calculation is done here. So I have my trusty whiteboard here that I'm going to control with my mouse. So it may be a little sloppy, but bear with me here. So we know that if they have provisional income between $32,000 and $44,000, then how much of their Social Security can potentially be taxed? Well, up to 50% of their Social Security can be taxed. Up to 50%. Not 50% will be taxed, up to 50% can be taxed. But we also know that anything over $44,000 in provisional income, 44,000 plus, can potentially be 85% of that can potentially be taxed. Okay. So let's get past the theoretical stuff and let's go into a case study. So let's say you have a client over a year's period of time, they took out say 50K from an IRA, so a pre-tax individual retirement account. So that came from an IRA. Do IRAs add to provisional income? And folks, to step back for a second, provisional income is what determines those brackets that we have here on the left. Provisional income is what is their gross income, meaning traditional IRA, pre-tax money coming in, meaning earnings, wages, tips, salaries, basically everything. But then that's not the whole deal with provisional income. You add in 50% of what they got in Social Security over that year. And then you also add in like non-taxable interest, like municipal bond interest. Let's keep this simple. Let's say that over that year's period of time, they got a Social Security check or checks, technically direct deposits, of $50,000. So again, 50% of $50,000 means that $25K is added to their provisional income. So provisional income for this particular client in a simplified scenario is $50,000 coming from the IRA plus $25,000 that they got 50% of their Social Security, right? So that means that their provisional income over that year was $75,000. So here's how the Social Security taxation formula works, at least the formula for arriving at how much their Social Security is taxable here. So first of all, we have to take this first tier, and that first tier is $32,000. So you subtract from their provisional income $32,000. What does that come out to? That comes out to $43,000. $43,000 times 50% equals 21,500. And I know some of you are thinking, whoa, but that 50%, threshold only applies to that between 32 and 44, not between 32 and 75. You're going to see what I'm doing here in a bit. So this is step one in the calculation. Is 50% of the difference of these two, what is that number? That's $21,500. Again, 50% of that $43,000. Well, then we have to address the amount that's above that $44,000. So this is step two here. Step two is we have $75,000 again in provisional income. We subtract $44,000 from that because that is our 85% threshold. But we already used the 50% factor. So what do we do here with this $31,000? Well, 31, come on. My mouse is not behaving well, so $31,000. That means that we have to apply an additional 35% factor, right? Because we already did the 50 above that. Now we just need to make up the 35%. So 31,000 times 0.35 is $10,850. $10,850. So then, how much of their Social Security is taxable? Again, the layman would say, well, $50,000 or above that $44,000 provisional income, so $50,000 times 0.85%. Then that would mean that on line 6B, it should show $42,500. Nope. In this scenario here, how much of their Social Security is taxable? By the way, I just now realized that my picture is blocking that out there, so let's adjust that. By the way, if you like this video, make sure you share, subscribe, and do all that other fun stuff here. But $10,850 plus $21,500. Let's just call this what? 32,000. Well, let's call it the real deal, which is $32,350. That's how much of their Social Security is taxable. So you take that 32,000. So that answers our question. That's the main meat of this presentation. $32,350 is what is taxable when it comes to Social Security. But then you add in their other income, right? Which dollar for dollar, what they took out from that IRA, $50,000. So 32,000 plus $50,000, that's 82,350 that they would have in income. But then, of course, we apply the deductions and all that other fun stuff, and they are probably going to have a fairly small tax bill. But the main point here is at $32,500, that is not 85% of $50,000. And this calculation is how it's done when it comes to how much Social Security is taxable. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with buddies, okay?